As we all know, most of the LinkedIn users are job seekers. We are also aware of the fact that hiring managers constitute the other major fragment of LinkedIn users. In such a closed spectrum where numerous aspirants are presenting themselves on the same platform to the same professionals, standing out can be a little tough sometimes. But your resume, along with the right guidance, can help you distinguish yourself from everyone else. And seeking a career coach might just be the right choice for you. From LinkedIn profile to your resume and job search till the interview, we are going to cover all of it in this episode of the LinkedIn podcast. To help you understand how to navigate the entire job search process, I have invited Ashley Watkins. Ashley is a nationally certified resume writer. She is a job search and interview coach at Right Steps Resume, which she runs. And her company was listed as the 8th best resume writing services of 2019. She has been helping job seekers prepare and land their desired job for quite some years now. Ashley has over 8 years of experience in resume writing and 15 years in corporate recruiting. She is the 2019 LinkedIn Top Voice among the career and job search experts. Ashley was mentioned in Career Sherpa among the 50 best Twitter accounts for job search advice in 2019. In the same year, she was also listed by JobScan among the top 15 job search experts to follow on LinkedIn. She helps clients craft high quality career documents, especially resumes and cover letters, and also the LinkedIn profiles. She likes to talk about recruiting, career coaching, resume writing, LinkedIn profile writing, and interview coaching. I'm just thrilled to welcome Ashley on the LinkedIn podcast. Welcome,
Thank
Ashley. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, I'm happy to be here. It's very exciting to be able to be on this platform to talk to job seekers about resumes and all things job search. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, great, great. All right. So, Ashley, I don't know about many people, but me personally, I haven't used any career coach as such before. So, what made you choose career coach as your professional, full-time profession? And what has your professional journey been like?
Okay. So I started in corporate recruiting about 2002, 2003, somewhere in there, a long time ago. And I actually started as an HR assistant. And then most of my duties included recruiting because that's something about me. My manager thought that I would be good with hiring. So because I've always been able to pick up vibes on people and match people to different things and serve as a resource for people when they're looking for jobs. So that's kind of how I got into recruiting. So it sort of happened haphazardly. I never got my degree and said, oh, I want to be a recruiter or a job search coach or resume writer. That's definitely not how it happened. But as a recruiter, people would often reach out to me to ask for help when it came to interviewing, because that's what I did all day. I interviewed people. I looked at resumes. I spoke with hiring managers. I had to research trends and take, training and stuff like that. And so I would share tips across social media. And people would then, reach out to me for advice. And I did a fundraiser because I worked for a major healthcare nonprofit at the time. And we had a fundraising goal every single year. And so to raise money to meet my goal, my individual goal, I think it was about maybe $1,200 or so. And I offered to review resumes for a $20 donation. Needless to say, everything kind of blew up and everybody needed help. I shattered my goal, so, it was great. And then people started reaching back out saying that they got jobs. And, they're like, you're really, really good at this. And you told me to say this, or you told me to ask this, and it was perfect and it worked out. And you told me to do this for my salary and, and all of that. And people are like, you really should charge. And when I thought about it, because some people were like, I got a $15,000 pay increase by doing what you said. And I was like, I didn't get anything. I got to contribute to a cause that I cared about. And, of course I did really well on my evaluation during that time, but I mean, I was like, they may be actually onto something. So I started doing the resume writing piece first. And it was more editing than anything, taking their current, format, making it a little better. So it was mostly just kind of touch up and editing work. And then I got more engrossed in the process, got trained more, and started to really, really think, okay, yeah, I could do this. And I launched my business. And so I started, again, like I said, just basically doing just your basic, resume services. And kind of grew from there as clients would ask me for additional things like, oh, I need help with interviewing. Oh, do you write cover letters? Do you write thank you notes? What about my LinkedIn? How do I use it? I don't even know how to use it. So as my clients started requesting things and, I was like, sure, I can do it. I started adding on to the suite of services. So that's, how I kind of grown into, to what I am today as far as resume writing. But it really was a process. It didn't happen overnight. I didn't go full time in my business until 2016. So that was 4 years, after I started my business. So it wasn't something that I did like right away, and even then it was a growing process because I had to get my certification because I'm a nationally certified resume writer. And there's less than 60 of us across the country. We're actually growing, in number, but it's one of the most elite resume writing certifications that you can get. And so it was pretty hard to do it. But of course I did it. And from there, resources, my knowledge about resume writing and everything grew. And so I was able to offer a better, much, much better product to my clients. And so I always tell them, I teach from and coach from a place of I've been there, I've been laid off. I've been underpaid. I've been undervalued at a company before. And it's, you have to take that situation and come up with a strategy to get around it. But obviously some people don't have the tools that they need necessary to do it. So, much like myself, I didn't know that a career coach was a real thing. I didn't know that there were people that help you with job searching. I thought you just latched on to somebody who did what you wanted to do, maybe like a mentor, and then that person helped you or whatever. I didn't realize it was an entirely separate, career that you can actually get in doing that. So how I came, into career coaching is basically just going by what my clients needed. I was, like I said, at first I was giving them just resumes. And then I realized that if I wasn't teaching them what to do with the resume or, how to go and make those connections, the resume was not this magic bullet that was going to get you whatever job you wanted or whatever pay you wanted. So teaching them how to more effectively use those documents, that's where the coaching came in. Coaching them on how to, on what to say when you're reaching out to people on LinkedIn. How do you become active when you've been dormant, for years? What do you do to, to kind of branch out and get yourself seen? And so I always teach from, and I've been there standpoint, as well as from a recruiting standpoint, because that's who I am at the core. I love everything about recruiting and prefer not to be on the other side of the job search. But, recruiting has definitely been, very influential in the way I run my business because I was in that life for so long. So it still is very much a big part of what I do.
Okay. Sounds very interesting story, Ashley, and I love these kind of stories where people love what they do first. They don't know what they'll make of it, and then they make a career out of it. I love these kind of stories, and it's very inspiring. It motivates people to pursue their dreams, basically whatever they like. So that's very inspirational, and thank you for sharing this. Okay.
Yeah, thankfully I was able to mesh the two because that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
You usually have, okay, you do this by day and then this is your passion by night and you have that business or whatever. And when mine actually is, it's one, it's all in one. So,
So before you started this coaching business and after you became a professional coach, how did your life change between the two phases?
Stress, but it was a different type of stress. When I was recruiting, if there was a problem, I could go to my supervisor. I could go to a coworker who's maybe been there, done that, right? And as a business owner, I had to, I'm the end all be all, right? So I had to align myself with people who could serve as sort of that sounding board or the resource or someone who can coach and guide me. So I had to, join associations, the same thing that I teach my clients to do. You need to join your industry specific associations. You also need to be active in groups. So, so I did all of those things that I coach my clients to do. I was doing that in my business, and that's what helped me become as successful as I am today. But it was definitely a big shift. I think what I appreciate the most is now that I have processes in place and everything is up and running the way that as close to the way that I want it running as possible, because I'm still a solopreneur, and I would, love to have a team at some point, and I'm actually working on that for 2021. But just knowing that the freedom is what I make it.
Yeah.
So if I feel like I would benefit from, not being, not working on a day, taking half a day on a Friday or just in the middle of the week on a Wednesday, I can actually do that. So I enjoy the
Yeah.
freedom of that and the freedom to be able to serve my clients the way I feel like it's best for them or the way we feel that it's best, instead of me saying, oh, per policy, my company doesn't allow me to do whatever.
Yeah.
I can modify services and plans and strategies to fit each individual client, because there's no one size fit all method to get somebody a job.
Yeah.
Sure, it may work if Tina said this worked for her, or Michelle or Michael said that worked for them, but it doesn't always mean that it'll pan out for you like that. Some people are just connected to they're at the right place at the right time all the
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
And that's not everybody's story. So just being able to coach on an individual basis, it definitely has helped a lot.
Wow. All right. So you mentioned something about processes being in place for you right now. So what is your coaching process like?
Well, first and foremost, because the majority of my clients have never worked with a career coach or a job search coach, and I do get a lot of referrals, but I offer complimentary calls to anyone who's looking to work with me. We have a call to get to know each other, so that I can explain, what they could expect by working with me. And so that's something that I think is very important because, career coaching, resume writing, all of that it's an investment. And so, if you're going to put that much time and energy into something, you need to be clear on what that entails, clear on the expectation. So that's what I usually have that initial call with them. And then after that, we select a package that fits their specific career needs. And then, from there, we go through the payment process and all of that. But we'll do, just depending on the type of coaching, we typically have a questionnaire so I can learn more about, even though I may be familiar with the industry, I will never know my clients' jobs the way that they do.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
getting to know them and listening to what their concerns are so that I can build packages and provide resources that help them with whatever challenges they may be having in their job search. So we'll go through that process. And then, I have some clients that they get just documents. We're done after the documents, but I do allow people to reach back out to me to ask questions, because a lot of times you don't know what questions you have or what you'll
Yeah.
struggle with until it's in your face, right? So, I do have people that will reach back out to ask additional questions, ask for additional support, and then we can, sign on those things as an individual, maybe a 1-hour session or something to explain or get them to where they need to be. So I do have packages for coaching, but then I also have individual sessions, because some people
Okay.
don't need a whole in-depth 6-week program or whatever. They may just sit with me for a little, for a small or a short period of time, help me with this one thing, and then I'm good. And some people like to bite off in smaller pieces because it could be financial reasons or just commitment. You don't want to commit to work with somebody for 6 months that you have never worked with, before. A lot of times. So I do have packages that fits, people wherever they are in their career. But that's basically how the process works.
Wow. So it looks like any other, business process. So first you understand clients' needs, then you make a customized package for them, whatever suits their needs. So yeah,
Right.
that's how every business should be running. Understand the customer's need first, guys. That's the essence of this answer. Okay.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
that's basically, really what it is. I do have packages already to help people who really don't know what they may need, just to give them an idea of the services. And usually it's maybe like those must need packages where this is something that's a must. This is something that you need definitely
Yeah.
to be successful. But this is just to get you started. It's just some of the things or the most frequently purchased, items. I've packaged those like a bundle, pretty much like, how you have cable or internet or, or whatever, you bundle your home and life insurance or whatever. So I do have services like that, but, I do have a full suite of a la carte services as well,
Yeah.
for the people who just like, oh, I just want this one thing or, or
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, you
Great.
definitely could build your own package.
All right. So Ashley, the next question is for those people who have never worked with a career coach before. So what do you think makes a good career coach? What philosophy a career coach should follow? Can you share something about that?
Yeah, I think I can talk about what I think makes me a great coach.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the experience that I have, the knowledge of the job search process, the knowledge of resumes or, and career documents in general, but also listening to what my clients actually need, because sometimes I don't want to push a service onto someone that I don't feel like they need. I think also someone who holds you accountable for the things that you're supposed to do. So I don't do a whole lot of oh, you need to do this. It's time to do this. It's time to do this. Where are you with this? I don't do a whole lot of that because, I feel like once you sign up and invest in something like this, you have an obligation to go forward with whatever you're supposed to do. We're all adults. You know what your due dates are and stuff like that. I don't need to micromanage everything that you do.
Yeah.
And I try to make it as much at, to my client's own pace as possible, especially when we're in a coaching situation. But there are a lot of things that, clients do have to do on their own. Coaching is not a done for you process. There's work to be done. You're working with somebody who's going to give you a plan and actionable steps to take in order to get you to where you want to be, not somebody that's going to build out this whole thing and do it for you.
Yeah.
So, again, that's why I have that initial conversation so that people are really clear about what coaching actually is. I mean, when you think about maybe a football team or something like that, the coach doesn't get out on the field with them and play the game.
Yeah.
They're telling you, this is the strategy, this is where I think, but it's up to you to do the execution to get, the first down or to get the touchdown or, whatever. And so that's sort of how I coach him, in my business. Like, I'm going to give you the playbook, and I'll walk you through what we need to do, but it's up to you to actually execute and get the results. Not me. I don't make that decision. I don't sit with you in the interview. You still have to, to execute that. So I think picking someone that you feel like, gets you and that, I think that's what, but you have to make sure that person knows what they're doing and that they've been successful before. But, that's basically the gist of it.
Yeah, so it's very important to make the objectives and the process clear in the initial stages itself. Because just like you gave an example of a football coach, I would give an example of a personal trainer. For example, if you want to lose weight, you can go to him. He'll tell you all the exercises, but you have to do those. So you can guide them, but they have to do the hard work. They have to push themselves and get that job, apply those tactics which you have taught them. Yeah,
exactly. Because I always tell my clients, like, I'm not the all-knowing, person. There are certain things that I may tell you to do that may not work right away for your situation.
Yeah.
But that's when we come together and assess where we are, what we've done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and then being able to quickly shift gears and not really take it personally when something doesn't work. When somebody says, well, I reached out and they still didn't respond to me. What do I, then the next step is, okay, well, what do we do next? Not that, all is lost. No, you just have to do it a different way. And, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So there's multiple solutions, to the one issue. Absolutely. And so, just working together to build what works best for us.
Okay.
So.
All right. So Ashley, how do you define a success with a client? So is it getting him a job, getting him that interview, increasing his salary? How do you define a success with a client?
So success looks different for each person. So some people may come to me and the main issue is confidence. And so when we, by the time you go through the questionnaire or the discovery process and I've interviewed them and I'm pulling out all of the hidden gems that they may have had throughout their careers, they should walk away from me feeling inspired and not feeling that because they've been undervalued in the past, that that's something that they should expect going forward. You can change the narrative of your job search. You have just as much power in your job search as any hiring manager, as any target company, as anybody that's on the hiring team. You also have power as well, because while you're waiting on them to offer you the job, they need you to say yes too. They have obligations to fill too. Absolutely. So they are no more important than you. They need you to agree and want to be with them just as much as you need them to want you to. So I think when they walk away, if their issue was not being able to make it past whatever point they were at, like, some people will apply, never get an interview, right? So now if we fix the process and we help them get an interview, that's success. Yeah. So if we celebrate the small wins. So it's not always about the job offer, because there's success in building relationships. There's success in trusting yourself and identifying what it is that you want to do in the next phase of your career if you're, hoping to change into another industry. So again, success is defined by the individual, even though the ultimate goal is getting that offer and saying yes and starting and loving the job. But some people can get that and they're still not happy. There's still work to be done. They still want that leadership role. They still want, to relocate to another area. So again, success is defined by the individual. But, like I said, of course, the ultimate, identifier of success is them having the job that they want.
Okay. All right. Celebrate the small wins, but wait for the big win. That is getting that job that you want and that you deserve, and finding that right fit for you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
So Ashley, what do you think about the current job situation right now due to the COVID? And these are difficult times. People are losing jobs. Businesses are shutting down. So how is the
Right.
current job market looking to you?
So I was a recruiter in 2008. And so it was a major recession, for the U.S. And so when this situation seems very reminiscent of that, although we weren't wearing masks and we
Yeah.
weren't able to go on, not go on vacation and things like that. So that's something that's really different. I think too, the work from home situation is really shaking things up, because a lot of people weren't prepared, to do that. Companies weren't prepared to set their employees up, for success working from home. So I think people, in order to get ahead in the job search or in your career, you have to understand how you impact a change and how it will, so think about your position and what you do and how you do your work, how you did your work pre-COVID. Now that we
Yeah.
have this situation, how are you going to show your company the value that you offer, not being able to be in front of clients? How are you going to shift and be able to respond to evolving needs of your clients? Because if you're a service provider, you have to, now I know that most of my clients are working from home, so I may have to adjust my schedule a little bit.
Yeah.
I may have to, take some later calls because they can't take a break in the middle of the day because they're teaching, their kids virtually, and they've never had to, to do that before.
Yeah.
So just being able to adjust and show your value, and don't be afraid to give your innovative ideas, even if you're at the lower level of the organization, providing those ideas and ways to still serve the customer or the clients or whoever, to keep that, revenue flowing. Speak up. Because that's what companies need. They need employees who are innovators, who are, forward thinking, who really have their fingers on the pulse of what's going on in the industry, and being able to respond with the resources that you have readily available, right now. And so if you can find a way to do your job online as effectively, or if not more than what you were doing pre-COVID, that's the way you stand out in
Yeah.
today's job search. But I think it was, the stat said it was somewhere 5 to 6 months that job searching took pre-COVID. So now that you're adding COVID in there, where people are furloughing, they're putting jobs on freeze, they're doing all of these things. I think that's going to extend. So it may be 1 year before somebody gets a job now, instead of the 5 months. But working with a coach or working with a recruiter or someone who's knowledgeable of a hiring process can shorten that time dramatically, because they can give you an upper hand over other job seekers who have not gotten help.
Yeah. So guys, that's why you need a career coach right now. If you are facing any issues in your job, you're not getting the job that you wanted, or you have been fired, or you have lost your job for whatever reason, you need to get some guidance if you are facing any issues, and career coaches can help you do that. So it's very important that you reach out to someone who can guide you regarding the process. This post-COVID era, as Ashley rightly said, it's very different. Everything is coming online, and if you have not worked towards that, you have to start doing things digitally, because that's what companies are valuing right now. Absolutely.
Right, right. And so
Okay.
I'm noticing that too. My clients that are in fields like marketing, IT, if they're in any sort of say customer service, and those types of roles, they're seem to be getting jobs a whole lot faster, because the work that they do can easily shift over into something virtual. The work that they do is not dependent upon them being face to face with the customer, like say a service technician or someone who works in the medical field and stuff like that. But jobs like medical billing, positions like especially help desk. If you are someone who has an online or a digital marketing campaigns that you help people with. The clients that I work with that do those types of jobs, they are thriving. So that's why I said anything that you're doing, find a way to do it virtually or to do it with less contact, with as little as contact as possible. And I think that will help you stand out from your competition, and then help your employer see value in you where you stand, so that you don't have to switch careers.
Okay. So actually, we have learned that people have to acquire this new skill of doing things digitally or virtually. But what are the best job searching strategies right now?
Yeah, right now networking is still number one. And so when I work with clients, the main theme that I see that's an issue with each of them, regardless of how well they interview, how nice they are, how experienced they are, how credentialed they are, your job search comes down to three things: your resume being your marketing tool, because that's the way you self-market. That's your
Yeah.
brochure about your
Yeah.
career, to
Yes.
make people, want to sign up or want to buy into you.
Yeah.
And then it is your networking. Definitely. Because you being connected to the right people, so many more people get jobs through referrals than anything. When I was actually corporate recruiting on a full-time basis, referrals got interviews,
Yeah.
because there was an obligation there, because if there's a longstanding employee with, high performance, then you trust who that employee is saying,
Yeah.
yeah, this person will be great for the job. So that person is more than likely going to get that interview. And so people need to step outside of their comfort zone. And, most people chop it up to, oh, I don't like interacting with people. I get really, really, really nervous. So I don't want to go to this event. Okay, face-to-face events aren't happening now.
Yeah.
So online is a way for you to hide behind your keyboard and network with people, build those relationships, be a resource, show the value that you have to offer, ask questions. Informational interviews can take you a very, very long way. I think people miss out on that. So their resumes, their networking, and then also their ability to be able to communicate how they add value. So
Okay.
those are the three things that I think people have a lot of trouble with when they come to me for help. They don't network. They don't tailor their resume. The resume isn't an accurate reflection of what they do. It doesn't represent the value that they bring. And then they just aren't out here talking to people and being in the know. I know a couple years ago, I did some research and it said that 75 to 85% of jobs that are out there are not actually posted. And that's because the companies have recruiters, whether in-house or agency recruiters that they're hiring, to go out and source and find people. LinkedIn is one of the top places that I went as a recruiter to find talent. So
Yeah.
if you're not on LinkedIn, you're definitely missing out on opportunities to build relationships with professionals who do what you do or who do what you want to do. And then those recruiters that are out there looking for somebody, that has the experience that you have. So you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't exist on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. So, guys, RNC, resume, networking, and communication, these are the three key things that you have to, master in order to get a better job or get a good job that you desire. All right.
Yes.
So, Ashley, there are three things that a job seeker has right now. He has his resume, cover letter, and his LinkedIn profile. So,
Yeah.
what are your tips, good tips on, building those three things effectively?
Yeah, just understanding that your resume, again, it's that career brochure. It is not your life story. It's not your autobiography. It doesn't have to be, 15 pages long to give everybody the,
Yeah.
to give everybody the goodness that you have to offer. A good 1 to 2, maybe even 3, depending on how much experience you have. Typically the resumes that I do are around 2 pages. Entry level, clients that I have, they may have a 1-pager,
Okay.
or we do a 1-page networking document or something like that. But it has to be tailored to that specific audience, as well as the role that you hope to gain. Because what that employer is looking for in that resume is that you have not only the skills and the competencies to do it, but that you can demonstrate success in those areas.
Okay.
So the resumes have to, show those things. What is it? So 3 things it has to answer: who you are, what you do, and how you add value. And you do that through your branding. You do that through tailoring with keywords, and all of that. So it's not all about the applicant tracking system. A person eventually has to see this, and, networking helps you get that, that resume into the hands of the right person. So, so keeping those things in mind, but then also positioning yourself as someone of maybe a thought leader in your industry. And you can do that through LinkedIn by sharing information, answering questions. It could be something very simple that someone's asked a question and they don't know how to do something, and then you provide a resource to them. People will then look to you for that information. Oh, he knows everything about digital marketing, so I'm going to reach out to him and ask this question. You become, that person. So, so again, just being able to everyone in your target, know that you can speak their language, especially if you're changing careers. It's you drawing the parallel between everything that you have done already and how it aligns with what you will be doing in that new role. That's what you need to do when you're showing your transferable skills, for that. So I think those are the things that, a person who has all of this together still needs to understand, that the resume still has to be tailored regardless.
Yeah.
Whether you worked with a professional or not, it's only for those specific types of opportunities. You need to, make those changes every time you apply for a position, and you need to consistently reach out and don't stop, networking just because you've landed a job. It should be continued.
Yeah, because you cannot stay at your current job or the next job forever, right? You have to grow in your career. So for that, networking is very important. So that's true.
Right.
Don't stop networking ever, guys. Even if you have landed a job, don't stop networking. Build your network. That will eventually help you in future. All right.
Absolutely.
So Ashley, how should a job searcher use LinkedIn? How should he approach recruiters there?
Yeah. So LinkedIn can be used for a couple of things. So you're out there to be found, right? Because you want to either, use it for networking purposes, for, businesses to, to generate sales or at least leads, for that. And then you also want to use it for researching. LinkedIn companies that you want to work for typically will have a LinkedIn profile, or the companies that the employees that work for that company will have a LinkedIn profile. So you can use it to research, look at so if you want to be a marketing director, but you're a marketing manager right now. So look for a marketing director, see what type of experience they have, what projects they've listed on their profiles, what skills do they have listed on their profiles. See if you can schedule an informational interview with them just to ask questions about what they do. Keep it short, sweet. I just need 15 minutes of your time. I have 3 questions. It helps to give the person those questions ahead of time so that you don't catch them off guard and that they're prepared to give you some information of value. But a lot of times people love talking about themselves. They love talking about the great things that they're doing. And they're proud of their successes. So them seeing you as somebody that looks up to them, usually it encourages them to, to take that call, to take that 10, 15-minute call with you to educate you about the field. So I think using it for research purposes, because you want to research the companies, the employees, the teams, the leadership before you start working for a company, even before you apply, because you don't want to waste that time. No time needs to be wasted right now. So it definitely can be used for the active job seeker, the passive job seeker, who's kind of just like, I'll put myself out there, but I'm not really looking and applying. But if you reach out to me with something good, I'll talk to you. So, it's for, like I said, the active, the passive job seekers, or the people that just want to build relationships and build a referral network.
Okay. All right. That's interesting and very valid point. So my next question would be, what are the top things that a recruiter looks when, for example, if you are looking to hire someone, what are the top things that you look in a candidate's LinkedIn profile?
Completeness, for one thing. We want to see a picture. And it's not because we want to discriminate against you. It's just that if somebody sends you a friend request or something on any other platform, you want to see a picture. There's a real creep factor when this person has no picture across any platforms. It's all cartoons or, pictures that are not them. It's just because we are, as human, we are very, sensory. So we get a sense of how someone feels or how they may act or their personality or whatever by their pictures. So the first and foremost, you have to have a profile picture, and it needs to be professional. No selfies, no shades, no, don't put anyone else in the picture. It's so easy to take a bathroom photo. There are several different, sites that offer tips on how to take your own headshots at home with your camera phones. Most people have smartphones with cameras now. I don't know anybody who doesn't. At this point, you can take a picture of something, taking it outside or at the bathroom, whatever. Do what you need to do to get that lighting great so that you can look professional. Then you want to have a headline that draws them in and makes them want to know more about you. Capitalize on each section of your profile, especially the about section of your profile. That's your mini bio. That's how you let people know who you really are as a person, because we're looking at several things when we're looking at profiles. We're trying to find, not only do you have the right skills, but do you have the right personality to fit in with a team that's already established? Do you have the right, what's your it factor? What makes you stand out? Because if the team is all drab and boring and that, very seldom have ideas, then we may be looking for somebody with a bright personality who can
Yeah.
shake things up, who will, re-energize the team, that we have. So don't be afraid to show those quirks about yourself. When I was recruiting, I talked about my dogs on my profile. I talked about the fact that I collect shoes. I collect little shoe figurines and shoe paintings and stuff like that. And I talked about that on my profile. And people would use that as a door opener to have a
Yeah.
conversation with me. Oh, I see you collect shoes. My mom has a, whole collection and blah, 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 whatever. And then now, we've got this, now I've got this cool connection. So, so just being able to keep your profile current, keep it active, because the more active you are, the more LinkedIn is going to put you in front of more people, the more likely you are to be found.
Okay.
So it's not enough just to have a LinkedIn profile. You actually have to use it.
Yeah, you have to be active on LinkedIn, because an inactive profile is just as good as no LinkedIn profile, right? If no activity is seen, you are doing injustice to yourself, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
So
If you go to a restaurant, you pull up and you've passed by this restaurant every single day for the past 2 months and nobody's ever there,
yeah,
you're not going to
absolutely.
go. You
Yeah.
shouldn't go. I wouldn't go.
Yeah.
Right. And so the same thing is with your LinkedIn profile. If I go, I don't see you ever commenting or interacting with anybody. It doesn't look like you've updated your profile. The information is bare bones. As a recruiter, I'm not going to reach out to you.
Yeah, you gave a great analogy, because food analogies are generally great. Yeah, so that was interesting. Okay.
Exactly. I'm always
So
hungry. So you always give food
yeah.
analogies.
So Ashley, any guidance or any advice to people who are facing professional setbacks in their career right now?
Identify what maybe caused the setback. So, always do some tracing, find out, where things kind of went wrong, and then think about, keep the end in mind. So if you know where you want to be and you've had some bumps in the road, assess where you want to be, build a plan to get you to that, okay, so if I know I want to transition it from marketing into logistics, right? Okay, well, maybe do I need this certification? Okay, well, I know that's where I want to be. What are some things that I need to be doing over the next however many months? It could be 6 months, a year. What do I need to be doing during this time to prepare me to make this transition? Then you can cut it down into small pieces to, decide, okay, what's absolutely necessary. And you find that out by having conversations with people who do what you do, people who are in your target industry. Find out what went wrong. So if it was because you were always late to work, okay, let's not put the blame on the industry. Let's not put the blame on COVID. Some people are losing jobs because they weren't performing. So if that's the case, then, maybe you need to get some coaching or some sort of support or encouragement, around the things that you struggle with. If it's speaking up, if it's public speaking, if it's, because if you can't speak publicly, a lot of times that rules you out of a lot of leadership opportunities. So if that's what you aspire to be, then you want to do, take the steps to, get a mentor, so that person can sort of tell you, this is something that could benefit you in this way. This is something that I would recommend, so that you're not doing it alone and you're not like on this hamster wheel trying to figure out how in the world do I get off to do what I, what I really, really want to do. So, I think it's just planning and strategy really comes with everything. And, it's everything in your job search.
Yeah, absolutely. Very valid points. So actually, one more problem that I have seen people face is getting a promotion in their, inside the company. And during these difficult times, it has become a little bit more difficult. So
Right.
any advice to those people, how they can secure that promotion that they always wanted?
Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of times I may have upset a couple of people when they come to me wanting those promotions, but they want it simply because they've been at the company for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, that's not enough for you to get a promotion. A lot of times you have to be able to show that the increase in your salary is worth the increase in value that the employer is actually going to get. So what are you doing to impact that bottom line? Have you been improving processes? Have you been making the company money, saving the company money? What have you done as far as outreach from a cross-functional standpoint? Are you reaching out to other departments to see how your role impacts what they do? Are you being proactive in that? So when you can show that your output far exceeds, anyone else is in the department, that your performance is always above expectations, that you're making your sales, you're knocking it out of the park. Any goals that are put in front of you, you're crushing them. Those are the types of people who get promotions, but you have to lay it all out, for the employer. I work with clients all the time that are trying to get those raises and those promotions at their job currently, but they're getting excuse after excuse. And we work together to put proposals, together to show the employer the value of keeping them on board by promoting them. And,
Yeah.
so those are the things that you have to do to get promoted. So even now, with it being, COVID is not an excuse for you not to be able to get what you want. There's
Yeah.
still ways to go around it and get pieces of what you want. It may not be a monetary promotion. It may be a promotion in title or responsibility. It may be that you're able to work from home where, most people in your role are not able to, they're not trusted to. Pitching that promotion or even pitching that work from home opportunity, you have to be able to show how it's a benefit to the company.
Yeah, because ultimately you are an asset to the company and you are there to provide the return on the investment. And the investment is the salary, the benefits that they are paying you, how much you are able to return to the company. So
Yep.
that's a very valid point. Okay, so
Right.
actually, I was just speaking to one of my friends earlier, and he has changed 6 jobs in 6 years. Okay, and so these kind of people are those who are not happy with their current role. They are
Mhm.
just looking for a better place to work, thinking that they will somehow gel with the company, gel with the work environment. They like the job, but that
Mhm.
does not happen. So
Right.
how should a person look for a job that he really is a good fit for?
I would say definitely you want to I would advise this person to do some soul searching and to
Okay.
also research better because it seems like they're running into the same issue over and over again. So look for, just do some self inventory and kind of document the type of roles that you had over the past. So maybe look at the past 6 years and identify where any bottlenecks are, where things that are holding you back, things that you like that have been fast tracked and then that you want to continue to do, and then things that you would love to just get rid of, altogether. So I think when you're really clear about what you want and what works for you, because it sounds like this individual may have just taken opportunities to get them away from the last
Yeah.
opportunity. And when you do that, you end up with buyer's remorse and you're back in the same situation because you hadn't truly fixed the problem. If leadership was the issue before and then you didn't do any research on leadership going into the next role and you just assumed that it would be better because of what they said. I mean, it's an interview. They're supposed to say the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't do yourself the due diligence by finding out, asking questions and, talking to people who used to work for that person. You're going to run into a lot of those same, issues, chances are. So it really is, digging deep and, peeling back all of the layers and getting down to the bottom of what the issue is and asking questions and doing your research so that you can avoid those issues and, going forward.
Yeah, so what I get from your answer is that be honest to yourself,
Mhm.
and as you said, search your soul, what you're actually looking for, what do you want in a career, so that sort of thing. Okay,
Mhm.
so actually,
Yep.
my final question is not job related; it's a little bit philosophical. So,
Mhm.
how should someone manage his or her professional and personal life?
It really depends on the person. If you are someone who, like now, I value my personal time a lot more than I did when I was in my career. At one point, I had 3 different jobs. I was a corporate recruiter. I had my resume writing business, and then I was also a part-time co-host of a radio show. So I had a lot
Okay.
of stuff going on. So I had very little free time. But the time that I did have that was outside of my full-time profession, I loved doing what I did. So it didn't feel like a whole lot of work to me because it was actually fun.
Yeah.
But I think taking a second, whether it's your weekends or whatever, to disconnect, to recharge. Like I take breaks from social media. I take breaks from work, quite regularly. I was one of those employees who struggled to be off work. Like I still
Okay.
would be checking emails, and I still
Yeah.
catch myself doing that now, but I kind of have to because I'm the only person, working in my business. So I have to do that now. But I still, even in that, I still have to have that time to myself. So, I mean, even after this, I'm going to go out and just take a ride just to clear my mind so that I can work on some other projects later, later tonight. So I think it's finding that balance. You have to recharge, because as a coach, I listen to a lot of horror stories and stuff like that
Yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
People are in some pretty screwed up situations, with their jobs, and that can take a toll on my own psyche. So I have to take time to step back, because I am so empathetic to my clients. I'm a Cancer, so I care, about a lot of things. I don't know if other people follow, horoscopes or whatever or not, but, or zodiac signs or, things like that. But I'm very, very empathetic. So if somebody's sad, I'm going to be sad too. And so it's very important for me to recharge and reset myself so that I can be everything I need to be for my clients. So I think that balance comes from what it is that you need to keep yourself, going at an optimal level. So that may be taking a lunch break every day, which I'm horrible at doing. I hardly ever take a lunch break.
Yeah.
If it's taking a lunch break, if it's taking a walk, if it's getting to work on time, if it's getting off work on time, and then separating, the two as much as you can. If that works for you, then do that. But you have to know what works for you, and no one person can tell you how to do that, effectively, because only you know what you truly need. But then setting boundaries for that. So if you don't want to take phone calls during your family dinner, let it be known to your clients, your boss, your customer, whoever it is, this is my time, and I will return your call after, after that's over. So,
Yeah. All right. So this seems to be a good point to end this episode. Value your time, value what you really like and love, and take a decision accordingly. And that's how
set those
you,
boundaries.
set those boundaries, and that's how you'll be happy. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm sure the audience will be able to, take away a lot of valuable things from this episode. So thanks a lot, Ashley. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if anybody wants to reach out to me after, they can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn at Ashley Watkins, and connect with me via my website, rightstepresumes.com.
Yeah, I'll make sure to add those links to your profile and to your website in the description
All
of
right.
this episode. And yeah, see you guys in the next episode of the LinkedIn podcast. Yeah.
Bye.